Well, here's the thought. When you study Lutheran theology, Martin Luther supposes a primacy of revelation. It's central to his theology. It supposes that before you can speak about God, you have to have some kind of revelation, before you can have a theological discussion. That is to suppose that we cannot intellectualize ourselves into a relationship with God. He says that's not possible. It does not mean that he hates reason, however, because he gives reasons as to why we can't expect reason to be informative of omnipotence. It's a lot like saying omnipotence is not bound to laws, reason is bound to laws, so why should we expect reason to be informative of God? In that case, we have to take faith, or what he said was faith, and we have to do that through revelation. It has to be revealed to us, and then we can speak about God. But if he was a true misologist, I guess, he would never make that rational defense of why we can't reasonably come to a relationship with God. He would never make that attempt. So your claim that he's the biggest misologist of all time, it's just bullshit. Sorry.
And here's one from the Christian Dutch existentialist philosopher Soren Kierkegaard. Christianity demands the crucifixion of the intellect.
Okay. From the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, quote, Christian dogma, according to Kierkegaard, embodies paradoxes which are offensive to reason. The central paradox is the assertion that the eternal, infinite, transcendent God simultaneously became incarnated as a temporal, finite human being, Jesus. There are two possible attitudes we can adopt to this assertion. Namely, we can have faith or we can take offense. What we cannot do, according to Kierkegaard, is believe by virtue of reason. If we choose faith, we must suspend our reason in order to believe in something higher than reason. In fact, we must believe by virtue of the absurd, end quote. And this is exactly, really, the same argument that we could make in the consideration of Martin Luther. These people are not misologists. You know, misology, the only context that I've heard that in, historically, is when Socrates was talking with Phaedo, I think his name was, and they were talking. Socrates was accused of being able to make the weaker position the stronger. In fact, that was part of his trial, the reason he was put to death, or at least one of the considerations in the trial. And he supposed that reason has to begin with a certain number of premises that you have to pick very carefully. In fact, it almost echoes a postmodern position where we have to have some sort of worldview backdrop before reasons can have any meaning. Because when you're talking in terms of metaphysics, it's very difficult to come to say the assertion that reason is primal, that's probably not the right word, but is all important without employing reason in some way, you know. The idea of something being properly basic is problematic. Really, all that is properly basic is Descartes when he says that, you know, I think therefore I am sort of business, but perhaps that's a different video. But you going on about how this is evidence of misology is a misnomer? Yeah. No.
And as for today, modern Christianity, mayhap you're saying that, well, that's just in the past. Modern Christianity is all about reason. Really? You think that? You think that, do you? Do I have to dig up clips of preachers on YouTube railing against reason? Do I? Okay. You asked for it.
Can I just tell you, I believe that it is the Bible. And you say, well, science proves, and I don't know, and I don't give a rip what your science book says. You understand me? The science book that our kids are reading today are not the science books that you and I read. And the science books that you and I read are not the science books that our grandparents read. You know why? Because science is ever changing. I have in my office right now an 1830 Holy Bible. And it matches word for word, letter for letter, the one I carry today. Why? Because it's just a King James Bible. In fact, I have a photocopy version of a 1611. It's 397 years old. And it's word perfect today. My Bible isn't changing, so I'm not too impressed with your science books. You know what Jesus suggested? Stop wasting time and just read the Bible. That's what he suggested.
Now tell me, honestly, think that Jagoff or any one of his hundreds of clones throughout the country would feel welcome and at home in any institution that's called itself the League of Reason?
Well, even this gentleman is trying to persuade people via reason. We might object to his conclusions, and I think it's justified to object to his conclusions. However, for him to suppose that, look, the Bible doesn't change, therefore, being the key word here, it is more authoritative than the science book that changes from time to time, is an attempt at a rational argument. We can assume that man values reason. He doesn't hate reason. If you don't think it's sound, then that's something else entirely.
So please, Jericho Movie, the next time you feel like making universal pronouncements, you might want to familiarize yourself with history.
No. Given your inability to honor the historical context of those passages so far that you've recited, you are in no position to lecture me, but thanks.
It is because of the existence of reason-hating fucktards such as these that groups like the League of Reason feel it's necessary to actually champion and argue for reason.
Well, now hold up real quick, because I didn't catch this the first time through. Let me see if I got this right. If you propose the League of Reason argues for reason, using reason as a means of persuasion, attempting to persuade people who presumably hate reason, I have no idea how you think this is going to be successful. I'd love to hear how you think that's going to be, how that is even a reasonable approach. And if you are announcing or representing a position that is held by the League of Reason at large, then perhaps I have found another objection to their approach.
They are why so many atheists see religion as a threat to intellectual progress and Western civilization itself.
I recognize, of course, that some atheists have a sense of righteous indignation against religions, but I believe it is misplaced. In fact, your video here is all based on misnomers, the idea that you could take these passages out of context and make them into a Christian mythology. And if that's the basis of your righteous indignation, then it's unfounded.
You might see yourself as a proponent of reason, but far too many religious people would rather burn us both at the stake than actually think for themselves.
Alright, so your purpose in this video was to show us Christian mythology, but you have unfortunately not given us one example of a person, Christian or otherwise, that supposes we ought to hate reason. All that you can suppose is that an epistemological consideration concerning theology is to be considered a blanket statement, to say that reason ought to be hated. No. If this is the basis, like I said, if this is the basis of your indignation towards religion, then it is based not on reason, and I have a very hard time believing it is the result of thinking for yourself.